The July heat pressed down on the Wolfschanze like a physical weight inside the concrete bunker that served as Adolf Hitler's command headquarters. The air was stale and close, despite the ventilation systems running constantly. The Führer sat at his map table, surrounded by senior military officers whose faces had grown increasingly haggard as the summer of 1943 wore on. It was July 13th, and the reports arriving from the Eastern Front told a story that Hitler had refused to believe possible. Operation Citadel, the great offensive designed to restore German initiative in the East, had failed. The silence in the room was oppressive. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel stood rigid at attention, holding the latest situation reports as though they might burn his hands. General Alfred Jodl studied the map with intense concentration, avoiding Hitler's gaze. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein, flown in from Army Group South headquarters, waited with the weary patience of a man who had delivered bad news before and would deliver it again. General Heinz Guderian, the panzer pioneer, looked at the colored markers showing German armored positions around the Kursk salient and saw the visible evidence of catastrophe. Hitler had been staring at those markers for 20 minutes without speaking. His hands trembled slightly, the tremor that had grown worse over recent months, a physical manifestation of psychological strain. His face had taken on a grayish pallor, the complexion of a man who slept too little and worried too much. Finally he spoke, his voice quiet and dangerous. "Tell me again how this happened." Von Manstein stepped forward, his aristocratic features composed despite the gravity of what he had to report. "Mein Führer, our forces achieved initial penetration of Soviet defenses both north and south of the Kursk salient. Army Group South advanced 12 kilometers in some sectors. We destroyed significant numbers of Soviet tanks and inflicted heavy casualties, but the enemy had prepared defensive positions in unprecedented depth, 8 defensive belts in some areas. Every kilometer cost us irreplaceable tanks and veteran crews." Hitler's fist came down on the table with sudden violence. "I gave you the best equipment Germany has ever produced, the Tiger tanks, the Panther tanks, the Ferdinand assault guns, machines that are superior to anything the Soviets possess. I delayed this operation for months to ensure you had adequate forces, and you tell me we advanced 12 kilometers before stopping?" The Führer's voice rose with each sentence, the quiet menace giving way to rage. 12 kilometers. We needed to encircle and destroy the Soviet forces in the salient. We needed a decisive victory that would restore our position in the east, and you achieved 12 kilometers of worthless ground at the cost of half our panzer strength. Von Manstein remained calm, though a muscle in his jaw tightened. "The Soviets knew we were coming, mein Führer. They had been preparing for this offensive since spring. Intelligence suggests they had specific knowledge of our plans, our timing, perhaps even our order of battle. They positioned their strongest forces exactly where we intended to strike. It was not a matter of inadequate German effort, but of facing defenses specifically designed to defeat our offensive."
Hitler turned on Guderian. "You warned me about this. You said the Panthers were not ready, that we should wait. But you also said that German armor properly employed could achieve decisive results against Soviet forces. Was that a lie?" Guderian met the Führer's gaze without flinching. "I said the Panthers had mechanical problems that needed resolution before committing them to major operations. Those problems manifested exactly as predicted. Nearly half our Panthers broke down from mechanical failure before even engaging the enemy. As for achieving decisive results, that requires not just superior equipment, but operational freedom, surprise, and mobility. At Kursk, we had none of these. We attacked prepared defenses at times and places the enemy anticipated. This is not mobile warfare, it is attrition, and attrition favors the side with larger reserves. Hitler's face flushed dark red. You do not have larger reserves. We have been destroying their armies for 2 years. We have killed millions of their soldiers, captured millions more. Where do they find these endless reserves? The question hung in the air, unanswerable. The Soviet Union's population was vastly larger than Germany's. Soviet industry relocated beyond the Urals was producing tanks and aircraft in quantities that matched or exceeded German production. Soviet training programs were creating new units faster than German operations could destroy them. The Eastern Front had become a war of attrition, and Germany was losing. Field Marshal Keitel, ever the sycophant, attempted to redirect the conversation. Perhaps if we reinforce the offensive, commit our reserves, we can still achieve breakthrough. There are no reserves, Hitler shouted. Every available panzer division is already committed. And even if we had reserves, where would we commit them? Modell's offensive in the north has been stopped completely. Manstein's advance in the south has stalled. The Soviets are preparing counteroffensives that will hit us while we are still disorganized from our own attacks. The Führer moved to the large strategic map. I was promised encirclement. I was promised another Khan, another great victory of envelopment. Instead, we have expended our panzer strength, battering against prepared defenses, and achieved nothing of strategic value. Von Manstein spoke carefully. We inflicted significantly more casualties than we suffered. The exchange ratio favors us. If we continue operations, we will destroy what remains of our armored forces for no purpose, Hitler interrupted. They can afford their casualties. We cannot. The admission silenced the room. General Jodl cleared his throat. There are other considerations, Mon Führer. The Allies have invaded Sicily. Italian resistance is collapsing. Hitler laughed bitterly. Yes, the Italians. Now I must choose between failures. He returned to the map table, looking suddenly older than his 54 years. We gave them months to prepare. We weakened ourselves catastrophically for no gain. Guderian spoke into the silence. The question now is what we do next. There will be no strategic withdrawal, Hitler replied immediately. We will hold our positions. Von Manstein frowned. Exactly as at Stalingrad? Retreat is defeat, Hitler insisted. The room fell silent. Keitel attempted compromise. Perhaps with strong defensive positions, with mobile reserves. With what reserves? Guderian asked. Hitler snapped. Restore them faster. Guderian replied coldly.
These are realities, not excuses. The confrontation hung in the air. Hitler finally spoke quietly. I understand our situation, but we cannot win by acknowledging weakness. He stared out the window. We must stand firm. Von Manstein answered softly. Standing firm has cost us irreplaceable forces. Hitler turned. Then we counterattack. I need you to believe victory is still possible, he pleaded. Jodl intervened diplomatically. Perhaps our strategy must adapt. Hitler nodded. Active defense. He studied the map again. Citadel is cancelled. We will defend. No one believed the final promise of renewed offense. The failure at Kursk marked the end of Germany's offensive capability. Von Manstein tried once more. Will commanders have authority to withdraw? Hitler narrowed his eyes. Tactical withdrawals only. Strategic decisions require my approval. It was the same trap as Stalingrad. Keitel concluded the meeting. We will prepare defensive plans. Hitler added. The failure at Kursk must not become public. No defeatist talk. The officers agreed. As they left, Hitler remained alone. Kursk marked the end of Germany's last realistic chance. He replayed the delays, the failures, the loss of surprise. Germany lacked the resources for attrition. Mathematics did not care about ideology. He imagined the future: retreat, invasion, destruction, the Third Reich crushed. Still, he clung to desperate hopes. Wonder weapons, political fractures, all illusions. Kursk had proven that material reality would prevail. As evening fell, Hitler sat alone, drinking more, sleeping less, haunted by shrinking maps. He had gambled everything on Kursk, and lost. Outside, thunder rolled, or artillery. He could no longer tell. The Battle of Kursk had failed. The Eastern Front was lost, and Adolf Hitler understood it, even as he refused to say it aloud. There was no longer a path to victory, only delay.